Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. This is your home for field trialing and deer dog hunting. It'll be stories and discussions on the world of dog hunting. So let's drop the gate, cast your hounds, and get ready for another episode of the Hounds podcast. The Hounds podcast is proud to partner again with Outdoor Dog Supply for the 2025 year. Outdoor Dog Supply is the leader in online garment sales with their world-class trade-in programs. The guys are not just a business, they're houndsmen and women too. They test their products out in the field, put them to the test, get the latest in garment equipment, and they stay locked and loaded and ready with field trial equipment, collars, leashes, and so much more. Visit their website today at outdoordogsupply.com, and we want to thank Outdoor Dog Supply for their support not only for the podcast but in field trials across the country. When you're looking for your next purchase in equipment, make sure you keep Outdoor Dog Supply in mind. Now, let's get this episode going, guys. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. Let's start off this episode with our verse of the week. That's going to be from Proverbs 27. So 20 and verse 7, chapter 20, verse 7. The righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. And then our quote of the week comes from Spencer Johnson. Integrity is telling myself the truth, and honesty is telling the truth to other people. So we just wrapped up the Penn series this year, guys. It was a great last hunt, guys. We will talk about the results later, but man, Hawtree was rocking. Mr. Joey Ross and George Elam, they got the pen absolutely in tip-top shape. It was a blast to be down there. We had a great time. I think everybody else had a good time. The guys from Elite Nutrition and Cajun Lights, Cajun Outdoors were down there as well, set up a booth, and was able to meet a bunch of people. They really enjoyed seeing y'all. They wanted me to pass along that they enjoyed it, and thank y'all very, very much for everybody coming up and stopping by and talking. By the end of it, it took, I'd have to go back and look and get the exact number, but it was in the 700s to win, and I think in the 500s to get in, if I'm not mistaken. Don't have it right here in front of my face, but excellent hunt, great hunt. Thank y'all all so much, again, for everybody that came, everybody that participated, everybody that did what they said they were going to do, all that kind of good stuff, guys. It was a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of endless nights and tireless nights of keeping everything organized, but by the end of it, we were able to crown us a not CH, but a champion for the series. Not nothing you can register, but something that definitely I hope the guys that won are going to remember for the rest of their lives. So it was a great group of dogs. It was one of the best hunts, honestly, as far as a overall group of dogs that I was very, very, very pleased with, and very, very happy that it ended up like it did. So we had 48 dogs down there, and it was, like I said, just as awesome as I could ask for. So I want to thank y'all so much. The past 2 years have really been a lot of lessons learned, a lot going on, a lot of fun. I felt like it made an impact on the sport, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, was just leave a mark and really try to create something for everybody to have fun, something for people to come down and enjoy themselves and really have a good time, guys. And I hope y'all did. So it's definitely going to be weird not doing it next year after being 2 hard years at doing this, but I think everything runs a course, and I see the writing on the wall, and I think next year was going to be too much of a struggle to try to make work. So we're going to call it done for right now. Maybe in a couple years, maybe we'll try it again, or maybe we'll get a wild hair, do something different. But I hope everybody enjoyed it while the 2 years that we did it, and maybe somebody else will pick up and take over and do something very similar. So thank y'all so much, guys. So all right, our topic for the night. I'm calling this episode Hot Topic because this was something that, after last weekend, the results at the Top Gun, it was brought up in the results after the second day, and it's a common thing that everybody talks about in the sport. So this episode, guys, we're going to be more concerned on the field trial side. I hope everybody down in North Carolina had a great opening weekend. They couldn't ask for better weather. Nice cool morning, a lot of game movement. But anyway, this topic, there was a post made after the awards were over and got people talking. I think everybody is very concerned about this topic. I do wish that I had somebody on here to kind of get other opinions. So this is going to be kind of a lopsided one-sided conversation, and I do hope to get somebody involved and on here so everybody can listen and everybody can get involved and we can have a conversation back and forth. I think this is the kind of topic that needs to be had back and forth, but this is also something that I think needs to be presented in other areas as well. Maybe some of the guys missed what was on the results. Maybe somebody missed what was on Facebook, and this is another way to get it out, because there is an issue, there is a problem that is happening. What I'm talking about is the judges and judging. I know it was presented in a way that I think may have ruffled a few feathers, and if it did, maybe that's what you needed. But I'm going to present it as a whole, and I'm going to say judges, judging, more particular 3-downs. Now this goes over the whole thing, and I'll kind of bounce back and forth a little bit in this whole conversation, but guys, for those that don't know what's going on, a lot of the older generation, the more experienced generation, is carrying a ton of weight on the judges' side. It's a lot of hunts you go to every year, and it's the same guys judging. It's a lot of hunts that you go to through the year, and it's the same guys judging. Those guys are getting to and I'm trying to say this without being rude and making these guys sound like they're antiques, but they're getting older. They're getting to the point where traveling, 2 weekends every month, just so we can have this sport and keep the sport alive, being away from their own families and trying to do something else. Now, don't get me wrong; these guys are enjoying what they're doing. From everybody that I've talked to, that those kind of judges that are moving around, doing a lot, judging as many hunts as possible. Those guys are absolutely enjoying. So don't take what I'm saying as them hating their lives and like, oh, I gotta do this. Oh, dang, I gotta go do another hunt. Oh man, I gotta go drive this far to go judge a hunt and watch these stupid dogs. They're not like that, guys. They're enjoying what they're doing, but we also have to understand that pushing and asking these guys over and over and over and over and over again, that welcome wagon's going to run out. It's going to come to a point where they're like, no, I can't do it anymore. I need to enjoy myself. I can't run and gun like that no more. It's time for me to move on and pass the torch down. So what was presented is that a lot of the younger judges need to start getting more involved. A lot of the younger field trial people need to get more involved. And I agree. I agree, but I want to know why that's not happening. And what I want to talk about is just some thought processes over this. Something that I've been thinking about. I really debated even talking about this on the podcast, just because I feel like there's a fine line of saying the wrong thing, and I hope that I don't. And if I do at any point in this, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to talk in a way that it's going to ruffle feathers. My idea is behind this whole thing was to speak on this topic in a way that maybe opens some eyes in all different directions, just from what I see. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that I'm wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that my answers, I'm not even going to try to give any answers. I'm going to present ideas. The Hounds podcast would like to take a minute and talk about our friends over at Cajun Lights. When pleasure running at night or judging those nighttime field trials, put your trust in Cajun Lights. With the economical Cajun Bayou for the every now and then light user, the Cajun Micro for the nighttime feeds, and the top-level Cajun Blinder for those hardcore crossings. The Cajun Lights are headlamp-style lights that free up your hands for voice recorders or your GPS. They offer flood-style lights in red, amber, and white walking lights. Then the top-of-the-line 4-level main beam light. If you're having a hard time catching crossings at night, give the Cajun Light a try on the red and amber setting to catch the game with the easy flick of a switch and go right back to your main beam light and see your hounds in action. Visit our website today at CajunLights.com and check out and make sure you fill out the survey and select Hounds Tales Podcast to receive 5% off your next purchase from Cajun Lights. Now let's get back to the episode. And I'm not saying that I'm 100% right on everything, because I don't know all the sides of the story. It's something that I really want to get involved with, because I'll be honest, I swear I think I enjoy judging more than I do, not in running dogs. Now, of course, it's always a thrill to go and run your dogs, but I'm 90% sure, taking out of the equation, of course, my series. If you take that out, I think I've judged either the equal amount of hunts that I've participated in, or it's very, very close. That's just making a statement. That's not trying to brag or anything like that, so please don't take that wrong. And I think there is a worry of what qualifies you to be a judge. What qualifies certain people to come and judge multi-day hunts? Now, guys listening, I'm going to reference multi-day hunts most of the time. And, of course, this also goes for one-day hunts. It is a ton easier to find a judge for a one-day hunt. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a lot easier to have somebody show up for one day or one night versus giving up an entire weekend or a week. So there was a post made, and there was a lot of ideas presented. And I think probably the most popular one is to have it set up in a way where if you run X amount of hunts, so if you run, for example, 3 hunts, you have to judge 1. So somewhere amongst those 3, for every hunt that you judge, multi-day hunt now, every multi-day hunt that you judge, you get to run 3. I think, I don't know. And I don't know if they're even putting it as, there's a lot of ways that you could put it. There was I've seen ideas of don't even allow them to run hunts. I've seen that it was a way of if they do run more than 3 without judging the 1, then their points for the year don't count. I'd love to be a part of that conversation on how to make that work. Do I think that's the right way to go? I don't know. I don't know what, and I'm going to pre-emphasize that before I get really further into this, of that I don't know that I know the right answer. I don't know that anybody knows the right answer. I don't know that anything that I say is going to be like there it is. That's what we got to do to make this work. It's more of a presentation, and I hope maybe people will take it to heart. So I want to talk about a few things that I see. For one is we'll go ahead and attack the younger generation getting in, the younger generation judging, getting more involved. I think, from my understanding, there's a lot of worry that goes into that. So when you are going to a 3-day hunt, you're going to crown a champion. If you're going to a 2-day Masters hunt, you're going to crown a champion. It's going to wear that badge for the rest of that dog's life. That houndsman is going to have that badge of honor for the rest of their life that they made a champion that weekend. So there's a lot on the line. And I'm not saying that outweighs certain 1-days, but from the perspective of non-prize hunts, or hunts that you just eliminate the idea of a prize behind. So, if you're going to just run, then putting a CH in front of a dog's name is massive. So you want qualified judges. And I noticed that was another point of topic, was what qualifies a judge to be able to go to a 3-day and judge a hunt. There's a ton of ways to get in, and finding the right direction. I get messages a lot, and I try to steer people in a direction that will maybe get them to that point. I'll use myself as an example. I was getting into the sport, and I was trying to figure out, hey, I want to get involved, and between I ended up talking to a couple guys, and then finally I got picked up and said, hey, it was actually Peyton Lucy that I shadowed my first hunt. I was very, very blessed that, and I'm 90% sure it was the Dismal Swamp that allowed me to come and participate in that and let me shadow. And maybe you're listening and you're thinking like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. Why is that such a big deal? Well, I was 2+ hours from home, so I wasn't going to go home every day. There's no way I could travel back and forth in it every day. I mean, you could, but it'll wear you out, So, I mean, I had to stay in a hotel. I had to stay somewhere. So the Dismal Swamp had to cough up money for a hotel. On somebody that was just getting in, was really, really green. It was a gamble on them to make that expense of hotel, feeding me, gas. Of course, I didn't know any better, and I turned in gas receipts. I was asked to, so I turned them in. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but they spent a lot of money on me for somebody to just be gambled. Now, every hunt can't take, 3 or 4 hunters that say, hey, I want to learn. Can I come and do this? Hunts can't afford to do that kind of thing. So I was very lucky to be able to get in and shadow, Peyton's a great judge. I was able to shadow him, and I was really able to watch and learn. And then by day 3, I was put out there on my own. And then after that, I just kept asking. And then they saw me, and they're like, okay, hey, he hustles. He's learning. He's trying to get there, and then you get asked more. I'm still waiting on some of those calls for some of these bigger hunts. I may not be able to go to all of them, but I sure would appreciate the calls and ask to come judge. I've had to turn down one, and it hurt to turn it down, but it was actually the hunt coming up this week, and it was the Nationals. But I got a little boy, and Halloween's, and dressing up, and and going trick-or-treating with them is really important to me and my wife as far as spending time with little man. I'm just not going to miss a Halloween, without him. So that's why I had to turn that one down, and I don't know that I'll ever get to that point, at least while little man is, interested in that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'll be able to swing that, but that path is not always for somebody. That's not always for somebody getting in. Because it is a cost. It is a gamble to these associations. So a green judge is tough. All right, y'all, we're going to take a quick second and pause this episode, talk about our partners over at Elite Nutrition. Our Hounds guys, they're athletes. They give us their all each and every time they're cast. Elite Nutrition offers all natural products to give your dogs the natural benefits that they deserve. From the Canine Remove and All Natural Wormer to the ElectroBoost Paste for electrolyte replenishment, body fluid balance, and blood flow improvement, they also have products like Active Dog Powder for recovery and joint and muscle support, Essential Dog Powder for daily vitamins and minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes, the Canine Lactate Powder for nursing dogs to help with milk supply. There are tons of other products to check out at CajunLights.com, and then click on the Elite Nutrition section to explore. When you get to checkout, and only at CajunLights.com, use the code HTElite10 to receive 10% off your Elite Nutrition products. Again, that's HT Hounds Tails Elite 10. So HT10 Elite 10 in the discount code section to receive 10% off of all your Elite Nutrition products only via CajunLights.com. I've been using their products, guys, for several months now. Cannot be happy with the results. That's pretty much all I run my dogs off of. So thank you, Elite Nutrition, for joining up with the Hounds Tales podcast and taking a step forward into this field trial world. Now, when you get to somebody that's starting to get experience, when you have judges, when you have younger generation, me, my age and younger, somewhere around, mid-30s and down, how do we get those guys to go to these bigger hunts? And, all right, so I'm going to make that a two-parter. Actually, probably a three-parter. For one, the first thing I have a question is I want to know how many of that younger generation are actually getting invited. Are these hunts going to their go-to guys? And there's nothing wrong with that. If they've got guys that have been judging for years and years and years and years and years, are they going to those guys, and then after they get to a point where they've reached their budgeted amount of judges, they say, okay, we're done. And then if one of those go-to guys or a handful of those go-to guys back out, then they're like, oh, crap, we have to find judges. And then 2 weeks before the hunt, they're asking a younger generation person to take and come to the hunt, and they get told no. Well, guys, I hate to tell you, if that is the case, and I'm not saying that's the case, I'm not saying that's what happened, I'm not saying that is whatever happens, but if it is the case, then work for our generation is horrible. Horrible. Taking time off of work in this economy, and a lot of your workplaces are so money hungry, so involved in don't miss work, don't miss, you're going to get penalized if you miss. Of course, then you automatically know you're probably not getting paid unless you have vacation saved up, which is fine, which is great. But a lot of these places are not doing vacations anymore. My workplace does not do a paid vacation. You get a yearly check, and if you use it how you please. But that generation, but I'm going to restart that. Does that younger generation even get invited? I know I'm going to speak from a personal level that only bigger hunt that I've ever been invited to was the Nationals, was the Futurian Nationals. And I had to turn them down. And I'm not saying that I can make all these big hunts. I'm not saying that I can go all the time. I don't know. I want to know what is actually happening. Who is actually invited to these hunts? You know, what judges are trying to come and what judges are just getting overlooked. How do we fix that? I don't know. I don't know if we need a database for these hunts to be able to go and look and say, hey, you know, there's this guy, you know, hey, I can ask him, you know. I don't know what you do in that situation. I just think there's a lot of things that are happening that there's no answer for. You know, option, and then point number 2 of the younger generation get in. Does these hunts cost so much money to go? You're looking at $150 minimum now. You know, you got some hunts that are still $100, okay? But for the most part, a lot of these hunts are getting to that $150, $200 a dog range now. So if you take 5, 6, 7 dogs to a multi-day hunt, you're looking at, you know, $800 to $1,000 in entry fees. Are we worried rolling up to a hunt? These hunters have spent $800 on only entry fees. That's not talking about prep. It's not talking about food. It's not talking about time. All this other stuff. And they roll up and see 10 judges that they've never seen before. They don't know anymore. They don't know that they don't understand their experience level. Are we worried that putting these new judges out there in front of these hunters are going to say, hey, it's going to make these judges, you know, these hunters deter. It's going to make these hunters get worried. It's going to make them get angry if their dog doesn't do well, and they're going to say, oh, it was just because y'all had 20 judges out there and half of them were guys I've never seen before. Are we worried about that? I'm not saying that's wrong to be worried about. You know, maybe it is. I do think that might be an idea that gets behind some of these hunts' heads, is like, we can present the judges that everybody knows just to make all these other guys comfortable, knowing that their dogs are going to be seen, they're going to be judged correctly, and they're going to be done right, you know. And then, of course, the other thing is the money thing, the money sign. And I'm going to say something I heard this weekend, and it's probably going to aggravate some people. It really is. This one's probably going to be my pushiest one comment that I'm going to make. I did hear it from somebody. I can't remember who I heard it from, and even if I did, I wouldn't say. Are we more worried about what the awards look like versus getting enough judges to make it a good quality hunt? And that's such a risque comment. Because I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of, I just spent $150 entry on a dog, and when I get up there, all I see is dog food and a collar. You know. Sorry, guys. I know that's nasty, but I get the frustration behind that. But if I can spend $150 and I'm going to a 400, 500, 800 acre pen, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter, and I see 40 judges coming out of there, I'm going to say, okay, they took the money and rewarded the judges for coming. They rewarded them and covered the cost on them, and then they gave us whatever else they could. Are we more worried about giving $2,000 back to win, $3,000, $4,000 back to win, and a GPS and a dog box and this and that and 10 bags of dog food, blah, 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 this and that, whatever? Are we more worried about seeing that put on the table and only having 20 judges out there? Again, double-edged sword. Double-edged sword. What do you want as a hunter? Would you rather? And again, I'm going to present this as a question to y'all. And guys, if y'all are listening and want to message me, talk, have a conversation, if you want to comment on the post that is for this episode, comment. I think these are conversations that need to be had. Would you rather go to a hunt, pay $125 a dog, and get back, 10 bags of dog food, a collar, and win maybe, a couple $100, but you got 35 judges out there, 30 judges that are watching. You got judges that are not only experienced, but you got also guys that are out there getting experience. You got guys that are going to keep the sport alive. Would you rather spend your money there, or would you rather go to a hunt, spend $125, have a chance to win, $2,000 back, but you've only got 18 judges there, 20 judges, 15 judges, whatever the case may be. And I go back and forth. Of course, anybody wants to go and spend the money and get paid back. Of course you do. Of course you want to go to a hunt and say, yeah, I won the hunt and I've got $3,000 worth of stuff coming back home with me, But then I also hate going to a hunt and you see 300 dogs, 150 dogs, and then you see 15 judges. And I'm not saying that cost is the only reason that you don't see judges. I think I think there is a ulterior issue in the sport. And I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. I think that I'll tell you what. Let's go to another point, and then we'll come back. We'll come back to this. This is I got an ending kind of point to be made. Points. Another thing that I've noticed and I've picked up on a lot. And I'm not saying this is an across the board thing. There are a lot. I'm going to talk on we've talked on the younger generation. I want to talk on the older generation now. And this is not an across the board. This is not a blanket statement. This is just something that I've noticed that I've seen carry over from the deer woods, believe it or not. There was an episode that I talked about, and it always is a funny story to me. I love telling the story, but it also it shows you where we're at and why we are not only in the deer woods, but in the field trial world too, that I've noticed. is the older generation did a great job of laying a foundation. They've built dog hunting up to where where it is now, to where we can enjoy it as a younger generation coming up. But they're having a hard time stepping aside, if that makes any sense. And I'm not, again, this is not, I'm please don't take me, if anybody is listening that is an older generation, I'm not saying that you need to quit. I'm not saying that you need to just not go. What I'm seeing is the older generation comes, they show up, they do what they know how to do and do it well. And I don't see a lot of teaching going on. I don't see a lot of explanation. I see a lot of, you should know this, and why am I having to tell you this? I see a lot of, I'm going to go to my spot that I've judged for the past 20 years, and you need to go over here and do your thing over here. Double edge. Younger generation needs to be asking these guys. They need to be talking to these guys. They need to be conversating with these guys and learning off these guys. They need to go to a hunt and say, hey, Mr. Sutton, I see you judging. Can I shadow you today? Show me what you're looking at. Show me what you're talking about. I want to watch what you're doing. Rule books, if you don't know, are hard to come about. I didn't know for years how to get a hold of a rule book. And you ask an older generation, they're like, oh, yeah, you just go here, do this, call this person, and they'll get you one. And I'll take blame. I never called that person. So I didn't know how to call them. I didn't know who to call. Was nervous about calling sometimes. The Hounds Tales Podcast is proud to announce our newest partnership with Low 10 Outfitters. If your kennel is looking for new apparel to rock through the next field trial, look no further than Low 10 Outfitters. They offer shirts, hats, hoodies, coats, and other accessories with custom logos for your kennel or your hound to go on. With top quality merchandise and long-lasting quality, you can't go wrong with Low 10 Outfitters. And now, actually, I just screwed this one all up. The Hounds Tales Podcast is happy to announce our newest partnership with Low 10 Outfitters. If your kennel is looking for new apparel to rock to the next field trial or the upcoming hunting season, look no further than Low 10 Outfitters. They offer shirts, hats, hoodies, coats, and other accessories with custom logos for your kennel or your hound's name to go on. With top quality merchandise and long-lasting quality, you can't go wrong with Low 10 Outfitters. Now we are offering Hounds Tales Podcast apparel on their website at low10outfitters.com. Be on the lookout, guys. It's there. Go purchase it. We're live, guys. Go in, go purchase it. Low10outfitters.com. Click on the Hounds Tales section for your Hounds Tales apparel and the Hounds Tales Pin Series apparel. So thank you so much for Low 10 Outfitters for teaming up with the Hounds Tales Podcast. Now, let's get you back to the rest of your episode. But again, double-edged sword. That kind of situation is both fault. But it reminds me of the story when my papa was giving me so much crap about coming over and cooking breakfast in the morning. You know, it's as simple as that. It's cooking breakfast in the morning for the hunting club. So I said, okay, well, I'll be there and I'll cook breakfast. Well, when I get there, he had breakfast already made. And it wasn't like I got there late. I was besides him, I was the first one there. You know, that's the kind of situation I'm talking about. It's little things that this generation has to learn, and the younger generation needs to be responsible for paying attention as well. You get to these judges meeting after a hunt, and you need to be looking and seeing what these guys are doing while we're reading hunting scores off, while we're going through scratches. Listen and pay attention. Like, nothing irritates me more than a younger judge being in there and nonchalantly listening. And everybody that's judged a multi-day hunt knows the master hounds will say any scratches from 50 to 60. And my biggest irritation is missing that. Okay? Pay attention. I know you're tired. I know you're worn out. I know you're thinking about getting back to that hotel, but pay freaking attention. And when he calls 50 to 60, you got 55 scratch, say hound number 55. Okay? Secondly, to make things flow better, there's an order. There's a reason for the order because that's the order that you put it into the computer. Hound number 55, loafing, 905, judge 14. When you go and start messing that up, you're saying, I got number 55 at 10:53, I'm judge 14, and he was loafing. Come on, guys, pay attention. Pay attention. Watch what these guys before you are doing. If you got dog number 1 scratched and you get that unlucky and you got to call him out, then that's just it. Whatever, if you've never seen it before. But for the most part, you've probably seen a scratch or two. You've probably listened. Listen to how they're calling it out. Pay attention. It's fine details that you got to watch, guys. But that older generation also needs to be responsible for saying, hey, this is how we read it out. This is why. If you come across, try to do it this way again. Don't be that hard ass of a older generation person and say, oh God, that kid's an idiot. Oh, he read his call out wrong. He's stupid. Oh, we don't ever need to invite him back again. Heard it. I've heard simple mistakes happen. I've heard bad judgment calls made in the judge's room. And of course, by rule, it's the master of hounds' responsibility to question. But the other judges, they're kind of stuck. It's like, hey, if the newbie is calling 8 dogs out for a failure to hark, or running a backtrack or whatever, a rule that's kind of very much a judgment call, and you got 8 dogs getting scratched for failure to hark, you're like, at some point you need to say, okay, what are you seeing? You don't need to make him out to be a fool in front of people, because if you make him out to be a fool in front of people, then he's never going to come back. He's never going to approach that situation again. He's going to be so scared to go into a judge's room. Even if he does come back to judge, he's never going to scratch a dog. He's never going to give a dog a trailing score. Maybe he saw the prettiest trailing score that you've ever seen. By the book, to the definition, trailing score needs to be 30 points trailing. Making him out to be a fool in front of people is not taken lightly by people no more. Guys, the older generation, if you're listening, this young generation don't have the thick skin like your generation does. They can't take a insult or a embarrassment and keep moving on. You got to kind of tippy toe around some of these guys. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but you can't just go out there and call them out in front of a bunch of people and expect them to keep moving on. So I think if I had any word of, I'm going to say advice because of lack of terminology, if I had any anything I could say to the older generation, is I would like to see more older generation stepping up and saying, hey, this is how this is done. This is what needs to happen to get this to happen. This is what way do this. This is this, that, whatever. Think about it and take that step. Now, I'm going to revert back to the working man. A lot of these guys are at a lot of hunts are either, and this is judges and hunters both, they are either retired, own their own business, maybe they got a sugar mama, I don't know. But they have this an insane amount of time that they're able to get off all the time. Maybe they got a Monday to Thursday job, or maybe they work 3/12 Monday to Wednesday, and they're just that daggone lucky, and they make $150,000 a year. Taking time off of work in this economy is awful. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I want to just re-emphasize that. So I get why the younger generation that's trying to get their life established, that says, hey, I don't want to lose touch and lose my place in the hound hunting world. I got to keep doing this to not lose what I have. to not let people forget. Say, oh, yeah, that's right, I do remember you from 5 years ago, you know. I understand why these guys are wanting to run their dogs that they're working hard all year, especially if they got a good dog that's working really nice. I get why you want to run 5 or 6 hunts with the time off that you can get, and you don't want to use it to go judge and let your dog sit at home. I get it. But that's where we have to, as judges, as people, have to swallow your pride and think about others before yourself and say, hey, if I don't go do this, then this sport will die. You're going to go to a hunt and you're going to say, you go to a multi-day hunt, you can be like, hey, we're supposed to have 15 judges and 7 of them didn't show, 8 of them didn't show, so, you know, we're going to pair y'all up into pairs and cover some ground. You know, do you want to get to that point? Are you going to go pay $100, $150, $200 entry fee to go to a buddy hunt? I don't think so. So, food for thought in that situation, guys. So, you know, I'm sorry, I had a little interruption up there. I had a child that was misbehaving. I had to step away, so if it sounded like a weird break and it's not a flowing conversation, I apologize for that. But between taking time off of work, being away from family, you know, like me right now, I will openly admit that I'm probably going to look back, and especially if my son does not enjoy the dog hunting, it's not something I'm going to force him into, but if he grows up and he's like, I don't want anything to do with these dogs, I want to do something else, then I'm probably going to regret a little bit being away as much as I do from him and missing a lot of stuff while he's growing up. Every time that I go away from this house and go to a 3-day hunt, go to a multi-day hunt, I'm missing time with my son. I'm missing time with my wife that I could be home just spending time with them. I could be doing things with them. He's getting close to the age where I can take him and he can start learning and seeing if he actually enjoys it, you know. 3's a little too young for that, but that is a factor for a lot of guys and girls in my age. Not to mention, you're not running your own dogs. You're working your butt off, going to a pleasure run, going to do all this. You see these hunts coming up. You're like, oh yeah, I really want to go hit this hunt. And then you get a call and say, hey, can you judge? You're like, dang, I really wanted to run this hunt, you know. This economy and this workforce and the time that we have to put into all these other factors that are not field trialing, that are not dogs, really put a damper on letting our generation grow in this sport. Let's just be honest with it. Let's just call ace an ace, you know, or spade a spade, whatever the freaking phrase is. You know what I mean. So, before we get to the results from this past weekend, I want to talk about 3 major things that I see that I don't know what to do about. I don't know what the answers are, but I think these are 3 big obstacles that have to be figured out how to manage. And I wish I could be part of these conversations. The topic number 1 is there are so many hunts going on right now that it is a lot to ask of people. That's a reason I'm not doing the series next year. Is there's already so many hunts going on, and I'm trying to get 6 hunts lined up for, you know, to cover 6 different pens. That's a lot. I mean, heck, there was a couple weeks ago where there was 5 or 6 multi-day hunts that were happening in the same weekend. So you got to stretch out. We'll just use a rough number of 20 judges amongst 6 different hunts. So that's 120 people that you have to ask to say, hey, I need you to come judge and not run your dogs this weekend. They were really good quality hunts all across the board. So to me, that point is a double-edged sword. How do you manage hunts not only as a hunter yourself and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, I understand that I really want to run, but I need to go do my part? And how do you look at it as a organization or a sport as a whole and say, how do we get these people to come and judge and run, all this? We're asking so much. Do we need to cut down on hunts? Do we need to put a restriction on how many hunts there are per year? I don't know. And that's a whole nother ball game. I don't know that that's the answer. I don't know what to do there. But there are so many hunts going on. There's so many different things that are happening that by the end of the year you're worn out as a hunter, as a judge, as a houndsman. You're like, what the heck is going on? Like, how do I get to all these things? There's so many options on the table, I think that's part of the obstacle that we have ahead of us, that we're facing right now, is that there's so much responsibility as hunters, as houndsmen, and you only have a couple dozen guys leading the way, guys and girls leading the way in this organization, in this fight, in this battle of providing a great hunting experience. I think another thing that I see is the younger generation getting in to the sport. Maybe the younger generation that didn't start out following behind dad, following behind grandpa, following behind my cousin that's been doing this for 20 years. How do those people get in? How do those guys and girls that are wanting to get in this sport, how do they take those steps of meeting the right people, and there could be a whole nother podcast right there, but how does that next generation that's coming into it, how do they make those steps to continue it, to make it better, to do more? What do these guys need to do to continue the sport? And last but not least, guys, and I'm not going to dwell on these a whole lot, but these are just some ideas and topics. Again, I could probably do a whole nother episode on just these. And this is a big one, guys. I think money is a super sensitive topic amongst people. Honestly, there's two ways you go about this. You either continue to grow and let's be honest, even in the time that I've been in the sport, we've gone from $75, $80 entry fee hunts to $150 entry fee hunts is the norm. An $80 entry fee when I first got in was like, whew, they ought to be giving away some great stuff. Now you go to an $80 entry fee hunt and you're like, I'm expecting not to get a lot back. It's those kind of situations. So how that relates to the judges, like I talked about earlier, is you're in that situation of these judges have to be compensated. It costs money to put people in hotel rooms. It costs money to get guys to drive down there. It costs money to put gas in their tanks. It costs money to feed these guys. I'm not saying that the hunt should be paying for dinners. If that's what the hunt wants to do, then go for it. If that's how the hunter feels he should be compensated, then go for it. Nothing wrong with that. But a lot of guys don't, and I respect that. But how do, we got to look at that. If you want 30 judges at a field trial, you go to somewhere like, Swainsboro or Tar River or Pools, where you honestly could really use 30 plus, maybe closer to 40 judges. How much expense that is per judge? I would be willing to say that, let's just do some quick math here. I mean, just on a whim thinking about it, we're going to say $100 in gas. We're going to say, let's see, if you're doing a 3-day, you got to feed them breakfast all 3 days. So we'll say $10 for breakfast, so that's 30. We're going to do lunch, we'll say 15, so there's 45 more. Okay. If they do cover dinners, looking at another 20 for dinner each day. For at least 2 days, so there's 40. Okay. Hotel room averaging probably $70 to $100 a night. So we'll go on the light end. We'll say 75. We'll say times 3. If they need to come in the night before, depending on how far they go away. So what's that? 225. So 225. Okay. So on the light end, without paying these judges, without giving them a gift, without giving them something as a compensation, if you're asking for 40 judges, that's $17,000 to cover judges. 17,000. I hope that helps put it in perspective some on how much it costs to get those judges. Now, of course, you got local judges that are going to go home. They're not traveling. You got local judges that live 20 minutes from the pen. They're not going to use a hotel room. So maybe you knock off a couple grand there. But I would say on a normal, getting top quality judges, getting judges from other places, I would say anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 is probably what you're spending on your judges. So we'll say 12,000 on the high end, okay, for 40 judges. Maybe you got 15 of them that are locals. So if we got $150 entry fees, that's 80 dogs that it takes to cover just your judges. If we go to let me see. If we go to that 40 judges and say maybe all 40 need to be covered, and we're doing $150 entry fees, that's 117 dogs that it takes to cover just the judges. Okay? Just think about those kind of numbers when you go to a hunt and say, man, where are all those judges? Where are the judges? Then you think about, well, damn, that's going to cost them 10 grand to have 40 judges that are, half of them are locals. Again, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to fix that situation. I don't know the answer to a lot of this. This is, I think, an important conversation that should be being had across the board. I hope it does get had, and I hope we do find some kind of some kind of answer to the problem. I hope listening to this podcast maybe inspired some people. Maybe it said, man, next year I'm going to step up. I'm going to offer to judge. Maybe these hunts say, hey, I'm not going to get the same 15 people to judge the hunt again. I'm going to ask 4 more new guys to come judge. Maybe that's an answer. Maybe there's something amongst all that. Maybe there's something that inspires somebody. guys, I hope that y'all enjoyed listening to this. I hope that was educational for some people. I'm not claiming to be a teacher or an expert. And there's a lot more that we could talk about on this, but I have to get up and go eat dinner and go spend time with little man before bedtime. So, guys, I'm working on getting guests. I've been swamped. Again, I'm going to make another excuse and just say I've been extremely busy, and thank y'all for y'all's patience. But I hope y'all are enjoying some of these solo episodes, and I promise to try to get some more guys on here before the end of the year, before we call it a season. But let's get right into the results from this past weekend presented by Cajun Lights. We're going to hit our championship hunt first, and we'll start with the championship hunt. We did do a best mouth and classy hound just for fun. You know, I know a lot of one days don't do it, but it was a championship hunt. We wanted to have some fun with it. Again, great hunt. The best mouth went to Albright's Foxy. That was out of Sire of the Year champion B&B's Chrome, and Albright's Kim from Southwind Kennels. The classiest hound went to River City Roscoe, and that dog's out of Fitzgerald's Ronaldo and Chasing Time, Kansas from River City Kennels. And the winner of the series and the 2025 champion for the Penn Series is Cardin's Miranda. The dog's out of Hog Wild Teddy and Reed's Poosicle from Heritage Road Kennels. Congrats, guys. I know y'all enjoyed it and talked to y'all after the hunt. And y'all are very thankful, so cannot thank y'all enough for coming. Everybody else that came, congratulations too and placed. It was a great hunt, and I sure do appreciate all y'all. And then the Top Gun was at Swainsboro this weekend. Best mouth was Tall Pines Mojo out of champion HBK Black Mamba and Hollow Oaks Spice from Tall Pine Kennels. Classiest hound was Kurt's Big Sexy, and that dog's out of Turd Hill Bubba Q. And HBK's for Loco at a Cross Country Kennels. And your combination dual and field champion is Parker's Mercedes. Dog is out of Sire of the Year, champion B&B's Chrome, and Parker's Jessica. Congratulations, guys. Looked like a great hunt. I wish I could have been down there. Maybe next year, if I have all my ducks in a row, I can make it to one of these big hunts, and y'all can drag me around for a couple days. But all right, guys, thank y'all so much for listening. We're going to go ahead and get this thing finished up. Love every single one of y'all. Appreciate everything y'all have done, all the compliments, and really helps me keep going. So, all right, y'all. Thank y'all so much. And like always, guys, happy hunting.